After giving birth to a son of a lonely Barren CEO, we fell in love and experienced a miracle. The Atlanta summer heat shimmered off the gleaming glass walls of Sinclair Technologies headquarters, but inside Amara Bennett's office, a different kind of warmth filled the air. Her fingers traced the edge of the ultrasound picture on her desk, not hers, but her colleague, Monica's. The black and white image showed the tiny form of a 12-week-old fetus, and something in Amara's chest tightened with longing. "One day," she whispered to herself, the words carrying the weight of a promise. The scent of Chanel Coco Mademoiselle, her signature fragrance, mingled with the aroma of her now cold coffee as she tucked the photo back into the congratulations card she'd prepared. As Senior Communications Director, Amara had transformed the company's public image over the past 2 years. Her office, with its clean lines and touches of deep blue, her favorite color, reflected both her professional success and personal style. But today, something felt different. Maybe it was the way the morning light caught her engagement ring, sending prismatic patterns dancing across her keyboard. Or perhaps it was the growing whispers about the CEO's imminent return from his London business trip, Callum James Sinclair. Even thinking his name made her bite her lower lip nervously, a habit she'd never managed to break. Their relationship had begun as the most unlikely of office romances, the warm-hearted communicator and the ice-cold executive. Now, after 18 months together and a 3-month engagement, they were planning their wedding. The sharp buzz of her intercom broke through her reverie. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Sinclair has arrived early. He's requesting your presence in his office immediately." Amara's heart skipped a beat. She smoothed her pencil skirt, checked her reflection in her phone's screen, her dark skin glowing, long, straight black hair perfectly in place, and headed for the executive floor. The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than usual. Her mind wandered to their last conversation before his departure. "When I return," he'd said, his deep blue eyes intense, "we need to discuss something important." The memory of his tone, unusually serious even for him, had haunted her for the past week. The executive floor was eerily quiet as she approached his office. Through the glass walls, she could see him standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his tall frame silhouetted against the Atlanta skyline. At 6'2", Callum cut an impressive figure in his perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit, his dark hair styled immaculately, as always. He was adjusting his cufflinks, a nervous tell she'd learned to recognize. "Callum," she called softly, closing the door behind her. He turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. For a moment, the mask of CEO Sinclair slipped, revealing just her Callum, vulnerable, loving, and somehow scared. Amara, her name on his lips carried a weight she'd never heard before. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and pulled her into an embrace that felt almost desperate. The familiar scent of his Tom Ford Oud Wood cologne enveloped her, and she melted into his arms, realizing how much she'd missed him. "So I thought you weren't due back until tomorrow," she murmured against his chest. "I couldn't wait." He pulled back slightly, his hands running down her arms to clasp her hands. "We need to talk." Those 4 words sent a chill down her spine. "About..." Callum led her to the sleek leather couch in the corner of his office. His hands were unusually restless, fidgeting with his cufflinks again. "Before we move forward with the wedding plans, there's something you need to know, something I should have told you long ago." Amara's heart raced. In their time together, she'd learned to read the subtle shifts in Callum's expressions, the slight tightening around his eyes when he was stressed, the barely perceptible clench of his jaw when he was fighting inner demons. Right now, every signal screamed that whatever he was about to say would change everything. "You're scaring me," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. He took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on their intertwined hands. "I can't have children." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and final. Amara felt as if all the oxygen had been sucked from the room. "What do you mean?" she managed to ask, even as her mind raced back to all their conversations about the future, about family, about their dreams. There was an accident when I was 17, Callum continued, his voice controlled but strained. "The doctors were clear. I'm sterile. I'll never be able to father children." His grip on her hands tightened slightly. "I should have told you sooner, but I couldn't bear the thought of losing you." Amara sat perfectly still, her world tilting on its axis. The ultrasound picture on her desk flashed through her mind. All her dreams of motherhood, the ones she'd held since childhood, nurtured through years of watching her own parents' loving example, seemed to shatter around her. "Say something," Callum pleaded, an unusual note of vulnerability in his voice. "Please." She looked up into his eyes, seeing the fear there, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as less than perfect, fear of losing her. This man, who commanded a corporate empire, who never showed weakness to anyone, was laying his deepest insecurity bare before her. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" The words came out softer than she intended, more hurt than angry. "Because you're the first person who's ever seen me for who I am, not what I am." His voice cracked slightly. "With you, I'm not the Sinclair heir or the CEO. I'm just Callum. The thought of you looking at me differently." He trailed off, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Amara stood abruptly, needing space to think. She walked to the window, watching the city buzz below. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Love isn't about getting everything you want, baby girl. It's about wanting everything you get." Behind her, she could hear Callum's measured breathing, waiting for her verdict. The weight of their future pressed down on her shoulders. Could she give up her dream of carrying a child, of experiencing pregnancy, of passing on the legacy of love her parents had given her? She turned back to face him, her dark eyes meeting his blue ones. "There are other ways to have a family," she said finally, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. "Adoption, surrogacy. You're not..." Callum stood, hope and disbelief warring in his expression. "You're not leaving." Amara crossed the room to him, placing her hand on his cheek. "I fell in love with you, Callum James Sinclair, not with your ability to have children." The words were true, even if they tasted bittersweet on her tongue. "We'll figure this out together." He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Probably not," she agreed with a weak laugh, even as tears threatened to fall. "But you're stuck with me anyway." As they held each other in the quiet of his office, Amara's mind wandered to the future they'd have to reimagine together. It wouldn't be the one she'd dreamed of since childhood, but maybe, just maybe, it could be something equally beautiful. Neither of them could have known then that fate had its own plans, or that their greatest challenge was yet to come. For now, they simply held each other, two hearts beating in sync, while outside the windows of Sinclair Technologies, Atlanta continued its eternal dance under the summer sun. 2 weeks after Callum's revelation, Amara found herself standing in the opulent foyer of the Sinclair mansion, her hand tightly clasped in his. The massive crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floor, much like the doubts that had begun to flicker through her mind late at night. "Ready?" Callum asked, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. The gesture was small but spoke volumes. He knew what these monthly family dinners meant, especially now. "As I'll ever be," she replied, forcing a smile. The scent of her Chanel perfume mingled with the aroma of expensive cuisine wafting from the dining room. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a sophisticated navy blue dress that honored both her personal style and the Sinclairs' unstated dress code. They followed Bradford, the family's longtime butler, through the mansion's winding corridors. Each step on the polished floor echoed like a countdown to confrontation. Amara could feel Callum's tension mounting. His habit of adjusting his cufflinks had already started. William Bill Sinclair stood by the fireplace in the formal dining room, swirling amber liquid in a crystal tumbler. His steel-grey hair and sharp features gave him the appearance of a predator waiting to strike. His wife, Victoria, sat perfectly poised on a high-backed chair, her face a mask of practiced pleasantness that never quite reached her eyes. "Callum," Bill's voice cut through the room like ice. "Amara." The slight pause before her name wasn't lost on anyone present. "Father," Callum responded, his CEO mask sliding perfectly into place. "Mother." Victoria rose to air-kiss both their cheeks, her perfume expensive and suffocating. "Darling, we were just discussing the wedding preparations. Have you set a date yet?" Amara felt Callum's hand tighten around hers. "We're thinking spring," she answered smoothly, years of corporate communications experience keeping her voice steady. "Spring?" Bill's eyebrow arched. "Why the delay? Surely you don't need 8 months to plan a wedding." The unspoken implications hung heavy in the air. Amara bit her lower lip, a nervous tell she couldn't suppress. Did he know? Had the family doctor who treated Callum after his accident broken confidence? "Spring allows for proper planning," Callum replied, his tone matching his father's in coldness. "Amara deserves a perfect wedding." Bradford appeared at that moment, announcing dinner was served. As they moved to the dining table, Amara caught Victoria watching her with an unreadable expression. The first course arrived, a delicate butternut squash soup that Amara could barely taste. The silence was broken only by the soft clink of silver against fine china until Bill cleared his throat. "I had an interesting conversation with Dr. Richardson last week," he began, causing Callum to freeze mid-motion. "He mentioned seeing you recently." Amara's heart pounded. Dr. Richardson, the fertility specialist they'd consulted about alternative options. How had Bill found out? "My medical consultations are private," Callum stated flatly. "Nothing is private when it concerns the Sinclair legacy." Bill's words sliced through the air. "Did you really think you could hide this forever? That you could marry without addressing the situation?" "Bill," Victoria warned softly, but he continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Does she know?" His cold eyes fixed on Amara. "Does she understand what marrying you means?" "Stop." Callum's voice was deadly quiet. "No heir, no future for the Sinclair name. Is that what you want, Amara? To be the wife of the man who ended our family line?" The soup spoon clattered against Amara's bowl. "Mr. Sinclair," she began, her voice trembling not with fear but with anger. "There are many ways to build a family." Yes, adoption." He sneered the word. "Or perhaps surrogacy, using another man's genetic material to create a child. Is that what you plan to do? Dilute the Sinclair bloodline with foreign DNA?" "That's enough." Callum stood so abruptly, his chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "We're leaving." But Bill wasn't finished. "You've always been weak, son. First the accident, now this. You can't even give your wife what she deserves, a real family." The words hit their mark. Amara watched Callum's face pale, saw the muscle in his jaw twitch. Before he could respond, she stood. "A real family." Her voice was quiet but carried across the table like thunder. "A real family is built on love, Mr. Sinclair. Something you clearly know nothing about." She turned to Victoria, whose perfect composure had finally cracked to reveal something like admiration. "Thank you for dinner. We won't be staying for the main course." The drive home was silent, the Atlanta skyline a blur of lights through the car windows. Callum's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his breathing carefully controlled. It wasn't until they reached their penthouse that he finally spoke. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice raw. "You shouldn't have had to endure that." Amara stepped close to him, loosening his tie with gentle hands. "Your father's opinion means nothing to me." "But he's right." Callum's eyes met hers, filled with pain. "You deserve better. You deserve someone who can give you everything you want." "Stop," she pressed her fingers to his lips. "What I deserve is to make my own choices, and I choose you." Later that night, as Callum slept beside her, Amara slipped out of bed and padded to their home office. She pulled out her diary, a habit she'd maintained since childhood, and began to write. "Dear Diary, tonight made everything real in a way it wasn't before. The choices we make shape not just our future, but who we become. Am I strong enough for this path? Can I really give up the dream of carrying a child? When I look at Callum, I know I love him more than any dream. But love isn't always enough, is it? Monica's ultrasound picture is still in my desk drawer at work. Today, I couldn't bring myself to look at it. Does that make me a coward, or just human? I keep thinking about what Mom would say. She always told me that God's plans are greater than our dreams. But right now, I can't see the plan. I can only see the dream I'm being asked to release." Callum thinks he's not enough. His father's words cut deeper than he'll admit. How do I convince him that he's everything I need when part of me is still grieving for the future I thought I'd have? Tomorrow, I'll be strong again. Tomorrow, I'll be sure again. But tonight, in the quiet dark, I can admit that I'm scared. Not of loving Callum, never that. But of the weight of this choice, of the finality of it. What if... The sound of Callum stirring in their bedroom made her pause. She closed the diary quietly, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. When she returned to bed, Callum instinctively pulled her close, murmuring her name in his sleep. Lying there in the darkness, Amara thought about choices and consequences, about dreams and reality, about love and sacrifice. She thought about the little girl she'd been, playing with dolls and dreaming of motherhood, and the woman she was now, facing a future so different from what she'd imagined. In the morning, she would wake up and face the world with determination. She would love Callum fiercely and stand against anyone who tried to come between them. She would be strong. But for now, in the quiet hours before dawn, she allowed herself to grieve for the dream she was choosing to let go. even as she held tighter to the man sleeping beside her. Sometimes she was learning. Love meant choosing between two kinds of heartbreak, and hoping you could live with the choice you made. The Sweet Auburn Cafe buzzed with Sunday brunch energy, but in their corner booth, Amara and Lisa Carter existed in their own bubble of friendship and honesty. Lisa stirred her lavender latte, her geometric patterned dress as bold as her personality, watching Amara push eggs around her plate with unusual disinterest. "Okay, that's the fourth time you've sighed in 10 minutes, Lisa said, setting down her cup. "Spill it. What's really going on with you?" Amara looked up at her best friend of 15 years. Lisa had always been her voice of reason, from their days at Spelman College to now. With her curved figure, confident demeanor, and sharp intelligence, Lisa commanded attention in any room, but it was her unwavering loyalty that made her irreplaceable in Amara's life. "I don't know where to start," Amara admitted, finally abandoning the pretense of eating. "The beginning usually works." Lisa leaned forward, her bronze bangles clicking against the table. "Is this about the future father-in-law from hell? Because I still say we could arrange a convenient accident." The joke pulled a weak laugh from Amara. "No, it's bigger than Bill Sinclair." She glanced around before lowering her voice. "Callum can't have children." Lisa's eyebrows shot up, but she remained silent, waiting for more. "He told me 2 weeks ago. There was an accident when he was younger and..." Amara's voice cracked slightly. "It's impossible. Medically confirmed." "Damn," Lisa breathed, reaching across the table to squeeze Amara's hand. "And you're just telling me this now?" "I needed time to process it myself." Amara withdrew her hand to dab at her eyes with a napkin, careful not to smudge her makeup. "I told him I'm okay with it, that we'll find other ways to have a family." "But are you?" Lisa's dark eyes bore into her friend's. "Are you really okay with it?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Outside their booth, a child's laughter rang out, making Amara flinch slightly. "I love him," she said finally. "That's not what I asked." Lisa's tone was gentle but firm. "Girl, I've known you since we were freshmen. I was there when you used to plan out your future kids' names in your biology notebook, when you cried happy tears watching your cousin's baby shower, when you spent a month's salary on that vintage crib because, and I quote, 'it's perfect for when the time comes.'" Amara's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. "Things change, dreams change. Do they? Or do we just tell ourselves they do because reality doesn't match up?" "Lisa." "No, you need to hear this." Lisa leaned forward, her voice dropping. "You're not just giving up a dream, Amara. You're giving up a part of who you are. I've watched you with kids, at church, with your cousins, babies, even with my nephew. Your whole face lights up. It's like you become more you." Tears threatened again, and Amara blinked them back furiously. "What am I supposed to do? Leave him? Break both our hearts because biology decided to be cruel? I'm saying you need to be honest with yourself before you walk down that aisle." Lisa sat back, her expression softening. "There are other options, sure, but have you really thought about what it means to let go of carrying your own child? Of feeling that life grow inside you? Of passing down your mother's eyes or your father's smile?" The words hit Amara like physical blows. She thought of the ultrasound picture still hidden in her desk drawer, of the way her hands sometimes unconsciously drifted to her flat stomach when she daydreamed. "I can't lose him," she whispered. "But can you live with losing this dream?" Lisa countered. "Because resentment is a slow poison, honey. It doesn't kill the love all at once. It eats away at it, bit by bit, until one day you wake up next to a stranger and wonder how you got there." Amara's phone buzzed. A text from Callum. "Working late tonight. Miss you already." Her heart clenched at the simple message, at the love behind it. "He's everything I've ever wanted," she said, showing Lisa the text. "Except for one crucial thing." Lisa's voice was kind but unyielding. "Look, I'm not saying don't marry him. I'm saying be sure, really sure, because this isn't something you can compromise on halfway. There's no such thing as having half a baby." The waitress stopped by their table, offering coffee refills. In that brief interruption, Amara found herself watching a young mother at a nearby table, helping her toddler drink from a sippy cup. The tenderness of the moment made her chest ache. "What would you do?" she asked Lisa after the waitress left. "Honey, it doesn't matter what I would do. This is your life, your choice." Lisa stirred her fresh coffee thoughtfully. "But since you asked, I think you need to talk to Callum again, really talk. Not about medical options or alternatives, but about how you both really feel. about your fears, your doubts, your grief, because that's what this is, Amara. You're grieving. I can't hurt him like that, Amara protested. You didn't see his face when he told me. He's already so afraid of not being enough. And you're afraid of being honest about your feelings because what if being honest means the end of us? Lisa reached across the table again, this time taking both of Amara's hands in hers. What if not being honest guarantees it? The question lingered in Amara's mind long after their brunch ended. Back in her car, she sat in the parking lot, letting Alicia Keys' Superwoman wash over her through the speakers. The song had always given her strength, but today, the lyrics felt like they were mocking her. What kind of superwoman was she, if she couldn't even be honest with the man she loved? She pulled out her phone and opened her calendar app. Their wedding date glowed on the screen. 8 months away. 8 months to be sure. 8 months to reconcile her heart's desires with reality's limitations. Her finger hovered over Callum's name in her contacts. She could call him now, ask him to come home early, lay everything bare. Instead, she typed, "Love you. See you tonight." The reply came instantly. "Love you more." 3 simple words that made everything both easier and harder. Love wasn't the question. It never had been. The question was whether love alone could fill the space where other dreams used to live. As she drove home through Atlanta's familiar streets, past parks filled with playing children and families enjoying the weekend sunshine, Amara thought about choices. About how sometimes the hardest ones weren't between right and wrong, but between 2 different kinds of right, 2 different kinds of love. Her mother had always said that God never gave you more than you could handle. But sitting at a red light, watching a pregnant woman cross the street with her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly, Amara wondered if sometimes he gave you exactly what you could handle, just to see if you would. The bridal boutique's mirrors reflected Amara from every angle as she stood on the raised platform, draped in ivory silk and delicate lace. 6 months until the wedding, and here she was trying on her dream dress while fighting waves of unexpected nausea. "Are you feeling okay, honey?" Her mother, Grace Bennett, asked from her seat. "You've gone a bit pale." Amara forced a smile, though the room seemed to spin slightly. "Just nervous about the dress, I guess." She'd been feeling off for the past week, but she blamed it on wedding stress and long hours at work. The boutique owner, Mrs. Klein, fussed with the train. "This Vera Wang was made for you, dear. Look how it highlights your beautiful figure." But Amara could barely focus on her reflection. The boutique's signature lavender scent, usually so subtle and pleasant, suddenly felt overwhelming. She stepped down from the platform, stumbling slightly. "I need some air," she managed to say before rushing to the boutique's bathroom, barely making it in time to be sick. Grace followed her daughter, holding back her hair and pressing a cool, damp paper towel to her neck. "Baby girl, how long has this been going on?" "It's nothing, Mama." Amara rinsed her mouth, avoiding her mother's knowing gaze in the bathroom mirror. "Just wedding jitters." Grace's tone was skeptical. "And the fact that you couldn't stand the smell of your daddy's famous mac and cheese last Sunday. That was wedding jitters too." Amara froze, her hand clutching the marble countertop. She hadn't thought about that. How her favorite comfort food had suddenly turned her stomach. Or how she'd been falling asleep in her office during lunch breaks. Or how her... "Oh God," she whispered, meeting her mother's eyes in the mirror. "No, it's impossible." Grace's expression softened. "Nothing's impossible with God, baby." "But Callum," Amara's voice cracked. "The doctor said..." "Doctors aren't always right." Grace turned her daughter to face her directly. "When's the last time you had your period?" Amara's mind raced. Between wedding planning and work, she hadn't been tracking. But now that she thought about it, "I need to sit down," she said weakly. Back in the main area of the boutique, Mrs. Klein was carefully hanging up the wedding dress. "Sassy, shall we reschedule the fitting?" "Yes, please," Grace answered for her daughter, who seemed lost in thought. "Perhaps next week." The drive home was a blur. Grace insisted on stopping at a pharmacy, emerging with a small paper bag that felt like it weighed a ton in Amara's purse. They didn't speak about it, but when they reached Amara's penthouse, Grace squeezed her hand. "Call me later," she said softly. No matter what." Alone in her bathroom, Amara stared at the 3 pregnancy tests lined up on the counter, 3 different brands, all showing the same impossible result: positive. Her hands shook as she called her doctor's office, scheduling an emergency appointment for the next morning. Then, almost on autopilot, she found herself dialing Lisa. "I need you to talk me down," she said when her friend answered. "What's wrong?" Lisa's voice was immediately alert. "I think I might be—" Amara couldn't say the words. "But it's impossible. The specialists all said—" "I'm coming over," Lisa announced. "Don't move." 45 minutes later, they sat on Amara's balcony, the Atlanta skyline twinkling before them as the sun set. 3 positive pregnancy tests lay on the table between them. "Maybe they're all defective," Amara said weakly. 3 different brands. Lisa arched an eyebrow. "Girl, you know the odds of that. The odds of me being pregnant are supposed to be 0. Amara stood, pacing the balcony. Callum was tested multiple times. The doctors were certain. And yet, Lisa gestured to the tests. "What am I going to tell him?" Amara stopped pacing, gripping the balcony railing. "He'll think I—" "Don't you dare finish that thought." Lisa's voice was sharp. "Callum knows you. He knows your heart." "Does he?" Amara turned to her friend, tears threatening. "Because lately I don't even know my own heart. And now this." She pressed a hand to her still flat stomach. "If it's real, if by some miracle it's real, then it's a gift," Lisa said softly. "One you've been praying for." The next morning, Amara sat in her doctor's office, trying not to fidget as Dr. Martinez reviewed her blood test results. The silence stretched unbearably. "Well," the doctor finally said, "it appears congratulations are in order." Amara's heart stopped. "You're sure? Your HCG levels are definitely consistent with early pregnancy." Dr. Martinez smiled warmly. "I'd estimate you're about 6 weeks along. But my fiancé—" Amara's voice trembled. "He was diagnosed as sterile. Multiple doctors confirmed it." "Medicine isn't always an exact science," Dr. Martinez said gently. "While extremely rare, there are documented cases of spontaneous recovery from certain types of infertility. Without knowing the exact nature of your fiancé's condition," Amara barely heard the rest of the consultation. Her mind was spinning with implications, possibilities, fears, and hopes. She left the office clutching a folder of prenatal information and several ultrasound appointment cards, feeling like she was dreaming. In her car, she sat staring at her phone. Callum's smiling face looked back from her lock screen, a rare captured moment of him truly happy, taken during their vacation in Hawaii. How would that face change when she told him? Her finger hovered over his contact information. This wasn't news to be shared over the phone, but how could she face him in person? How could she find the words to tell him that the impossible had happened? Her phone buzzed with a text from him. "Meeting running late. Rain check on dinner. Shall make it up to you this weekend." The universe giving her a reprieve or just prolonging her agony. She typed back a quick, "No problem, love you," before dropping her phone in her purse. Driving home, she passed a children's clothing store. In the window, a tiny onesie caught her eye. Daddy's Little Miracle embroidered in silver thread. She pulled over, parking haphazardly, and found herself walking into the store before she could think better of it. The onesie was soft in her hands, impossibly small, real, like the life that might be growing inside her right now. A miracle, or a ticking time bomb that could destroy everything. "Would you like me to wrap that?" the store clerk asked cheerfully. Amara looked down at the onesie, still clutched in her hands. "No," she said finally. "Not yet." At home, she hid the onesie in the back of her closet, behind winter boots she rarely wore. Then she pulled out her diary, needing to make sense of the chaos in her head. "Dear diary, how do you tell someone their impossible dream might be coming true? How do you share a miracle without fear of it shattering? Today, I heard the words I never thought I'd hear. You're pregnant. But instead of pure joy, I feel terror. What if he doesn't believe me? What if he thinks—" The doctors said it was impossible. Every specialist, every test. But here I am, carrying what they said couldn't exist. A miracle. Our miracle. Or the thing that will finally break us. I bought a onesie today. Is that tempting fate? Should I have waited? But it was so small, so real. Like this fragile hope growing inside me. Mama always said God works in mysterious ways. But why this way? Why now? When I'd finally accepted a future without this blessing. When I'd finally made peace with a different kind of family. Tomorrow I'll tell him. Tomorrow I'll find the words. Tonight I'll hold this secret close, this impossible reality that's rewriting everything I thought I knew about miracles and possibilities. Please, God, let him believe in miracles too. She closed the diary, her hand drifting to her stomach. Somewhere inside, a new life was growing. Proof that sometimes the impossible was just waiting for the right moment to become possible. Outside her window, a spring storm was brewing. lightning flickering between buildings. Tomorrow would change everything. But tonight, in the quiet of her home, Amara let herself feel a tiny spark of hope. After all, if one impossible thing could happen, maybe others could too. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sinclair Technologies, but Amara barely noticed it as she rushed to the executive bathroom for the third time that day. The sound of her heels clicking against the marble floor echoed in the empty corridor as she silently prayed no one would see her. Inside the pristine bathroom, she splashed cold water on her face, careful not to smudge her makeup. 2 weeks had passed since the doctor's confirmation, and keeping this secret was becoming increasingly difficult. Her reflection in the mirror showed dark circles under her eyes that even her best concealer couldn't fully hide. "Just breathe," she whispered to herself, pressing a cool, damp paper towel to the back of her neck. The morning sickness was getting worse, not better, and hiding it from Callum was becoming an Olympic sport. She'd taken to sleeping in the guest room, claiming she was coming down with a flu and didn't want to infect him. A soft knock on the door made her jump. "Amara, are you okay in there?" Monica's concerned voice sent a wave of panic through her. Her colleague's own pregnancy was now showing clearly at 5 months, making Amara hyper-aware of every conversation with her. "I'm fine," she called back, quickly dabbing her face dry, "just feeling a bit under the weather." When she opened the door, Monica's knowing look made her stomach clench with anxiety. "You know," Monica said quietly, "I had terrible morning sickness too. Ginger tea helped." Amara froze. I just have a stomach bug." Monica's gentle smile didn't waver. "If you say so, but if you need someone to talk to." She left the sentence hanging, squeezing Amara's arm before walking away. Back at her desk, Amara found a new email from Bill Sinclair requesting her presence at an emergency board meeting that afternoon. Her heart raced. Had someone noticed? Had rumors started? She'd been so careful, but in a corporate environment like this, secrets had a way of surfacing. Her phone buzzed with a text from Callum. "Missing you. Dinner tonight. No rain check this time. I promise." Looking at his message, Amara felt tears threatening. She had to tell him. Tonight. Before someone else did. Before rumors spread. Before her body betrayed her secret completely. But how do you tell someone their whole world is about to change? The board meeting was a blur of quarterly reports and strategic planning. Amara sat beside Callum, hyper-aware of his presence, of the slight brush of his arm against hers when he leaned forward. Bill Sinclair's sharp eyes seemed to follow her every move, making her wonder if her condition was somehow written across her face. "Ms. Bennett?" Bill's voice cut through her thoughts. "The PR strategy for the new tech rollout." Amara straightened, slipping into her professional persona with practiced ease. But as she stood to present, a wave of dizziness hit her. She gripped the edge of the conference table, willing herself to stay upright. "Amara?" Callum's voice held concern. His hand was on her elbow, steadying her. "I'm fine," she managed, but the room was spinning. I just need a moment." The next thing she knew, she was waking up in Callum's office, lying on his leather couch. His worried face swam into focus above her. "The doctor's on his way," he said, stroking her hair. "Why didn't you tell me you were this sick?" Panic shot through her. "No, doctor, please, I'm fine, really. Just haven't been sleeping well." "You fainted in the middle of a board meeting." Callum's voice was tight with worry. "That's not fine, Amara. You've been finer for weeks now, but clearly something's wrong." This was it. The moment she'd been avoiding and anticipating in equal measure. But not here, not like this, with the entire board probably gossiping outside and his father's influence hanging over them like a shadow. "Can we go home?" she asked softly. "Please, I promise I'll explain everything." Callum studied her face for a long moment before nodding. "I'll have Bradford bring the car around." The ride home was silent, heavy with unspoken words. Callum's hand never left hers, his thumb tracing worried circles on her palm. When they reached their penthouse, he led her straight to their bedroom, helping her change into comfortable clothes as if she were made of glass. "Talk to me," he said finally, sitting beside her on their bed. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Amara's hand instinctively went to her stomach, a gesture that didn't escape Callum's notice. His face paled. "Are you sick?" His voice cracked on the last word. "Is it serious?" "No," she whispered, tears finally spilling over. "I'm not sick. I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Callum sat perfectly still, his face unreadable. "That's not," he started, then stopped. "The doctors said." "I know what they said." Amara reached for the bedside drawer, pulling out the ultrasound picture from her first appointment. But sometimes they're wrong. Callum stared at the small black and white image, his hands shaking slightly as he took it. How? Dr. Martinez says there are rare cases of spontaneous recovery. That medicine isn't always exact. She watched his face carefully. I would never. Don't. He cut her off, his voice sharp. Don't even finish that thought. I know you, Amara. I know your heart. His fingers traced the fuzzy outline in the picture. How long have you known? 2 weeks, she admitted. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared. Scared you wouldn't believe it. Scared something would go wrong. Scared of getting our hopes up. 2 weeks. He looked up, hurt flashing in his eyes. Now you've been carrying this alone for 2 weeks. Fresh tears fell. I'm sorry, I didn't know how to tell you that the impossible had happened. Callum set the ultrasound picture carefully on the bedside table before pulling her into his arms. You should have told me immediately. We're supposed to be partners, remember? In everything. I know. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in the familiar scent of his Tom Ford cologne. Are you happy? He pulled back slightly, cupping her face in his hands. In his eyes, she saw something she'd never seen before, a vulnerability that went beyond his usual carefully controlled emotions. Happy doesn't begin to cover it, he whispered. Terrified, yes, overwhelmed, definitely, but mostly, his hand drifted to her stomach. Mostly I'm in awe of you, of this miracle, of the fact that somehow, despite everything, we're going to be parents. The word parents hung in the air between them, full of promise and fear and wonder. Amara covered his hand with hers, holding it against her still flat stomach, where their impossible miracle was growing. Your father, she started. Can wait, Callum said firmly. Right now, this is just for us. Our miracle, our secret. Later that night, after Callum had finally fallen asleep, his hand still protectively curved around her middle, Amara lay awake, watching the city lights dance across their ceiling. The weight of the secret had lifted, replaced by a different kind of weight. The responsibility of carrying this precious, impossible gift. She thought about the onesie still hidden in her closet, about Monica's knowing smile, about her mother's unwavering faith in miracles. Sometimes the things we think are impossible are just waiting for the right moment to prove us wrong. Tomorrow they would face the world, the board, Bill Sinclair, the doctors who had said this could never happen. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, Amara let herself believe in miracles. After all, she was holding one inside her right now. The Sinclair Technologies executive conference room crackled with tension. Bill Sinclair stood at the head of the table, his face a mask of barely contained rage as he stared at the medical reports spread before him. Impossible, he spat, looking up at Dr. Richardson, the family's long-trusted fertility specialist. Run the tests again. I've run them 3 times, Mr. Sinclair, Dr. Richardson replied, his weathered face grave. The results are conclusive. Your son has experienced what we call spontaneous recovery. It's extremely rare, but rare. Bill's laugh was harsh. Try miraculous, or perhaps his cold eyes fixed on Amara, who sat straight-backed beside Callum, something else entirely. Father, Callum's voice held a warning edge. His hand found Amara's under the table, squeezing gently. Don't father me, Bill snapped. You expect me to believe that after 15 years of being sterile, you suddenly, magically, can father children. Just in time to save your convenient little romance. Amara felt bile rise in her throat. Morning sickness or anger, she wasn't sure which. At 12 weeks pregnant, her body was a battlefield of hormones and emotions. Mr. Sinclair, Dr. Richardson interjected, the medical evidence is clear. The DNA testing confirms DNA testing. Victoria Sinclair's voice cut through the tension. She had been silent until now, watching from her corner of the room. You tested my grandchild's DNA. The word grandchild seemed to hover in the air, making everything more real. Amara's free hand instinctively moved to her stomach, where the smallest bump was just beginning to show. Standard procedure in cases like this, Dr. Richardson explained. The results confirm that the fetus is, without any doubt, the biological child of both Callum Sinclair and Amara Bennett. Bill slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. This is absurd. You've all been fooled. This woman, choose your next words very carefully. Callum stood slowly, his voice deadly quiet. That's my wife you're talking about. Not yet, she's not, Bill shot back. And maybe it's time we discussed. A sharp pain shot through Amara's abdomen, causing her to gasp. All eyes turned to her as she doubled over, clutching her stomach. Amara. Callum was instantly at her side, panic clear in his voice. Something's wrong, she managed through gritted teeth. Warm liquid trickled down her leg, and when she looked down, her heart stopped. Blood. The next few hours passed in a blur of hospital corridors and medical terms. Dr. Martinez's face was serious as she performed an emergency ultrasound, the machine's steady whoosh whoosh of their baby's heartbeat, the only sound in the room. The baby is stable, Doctor Martinez finally announced, but this is a warning sign we need to take seriously. You're experiencing what we call a threatened miscarriage. Callum's grip on Amara's hand tightened. What does that mean? It means we need to be extremely careful. Dr. Martinez's eyes met Amara's. Complete bed rest for at least the next 2 weeks. No work, no stress, no exceptions. This pregnancy is now high risk. Tears slid down Amara's cheeks as she nodded. Will the baby be okay? With proper care and rest, yes. But you need to understand, any additional stress could trigger a miscarriage. Your body is sending us a very clear message. After Dr. Martinez left, Callum sat on the edge of Amara's hospital bed, his usual composed facade cracking. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "This is my fault. The meeting with my father. The stress." "Stop." Amara pulled him closer, pressing her forehead to his. "This isn't anyone's fault. These things just happen sometimes. I'll handle everything," he promised. "Work, the wedding plans, my father, you just focus on resting and keeping our little miracle safe." A soft knock at the door interrupted them. To their surprise, Victoria Sinclair stood in the doorway, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. Callum tensed, but Amara nodded. Victoria crossed the room with her usual grace, but when she reached Amara's bedside, something in her carefully maintained facade cracked. "I had 3 miscarriages before Callum," she said softly. "Each one nearly broke me, but the doctors never gave me the chance they're giving you to prevent it before it happens." She reached out, hesitantly touching Amara's hand. "Let me help." "Mother," Callum started, suspicious. "No, hear me out." Victoria's voice strengthened. "I'll handle Bill. I'll manage the wedding preparations. Amara needs to rest, and you need to focus on her and the baby." She smiled slightly. "Consider it my first act as a grandmother." Later that night, after being discharged and settled into their penthouse bedroom, Amara lay propped against a mountain of pillows while Callum fussed around her. "Are you comfortable? Do you need another blanket? Some tea?" "Callum?" She caught his hand as he passed. "Come here." He sat beside her, and she guided his hand to her small bump. "Feel that? That's our miracle. And he or she is a fighter, just like their daddy and their mommy," he added softly, leaning down to press a kiss to her stomach. "I can't lose you, either of you." "You won't," she promised, even as fear flickered in her heart. "We're going to get through this. All of us." But later, when Callum had finally fallen asleep beside her, his hand protectively spread across her bump, Amara stared at the ceiling, unable to rest. The doctor's words echoed in her mind. High risk, threatened miscarriage, complete bed rest. She thought about the nursery plans they'd just started discussing, the tiny onesie still hidden in her closet, the future they'd begun to imagine. How quickly joy could turn to fear, miracle to nightmare. Her phone buzzed softly, a text from Lisa. "Need anything? I can be there in 20 with ice cream and terrible movies." Amara smiled through tears as she replied, "Rain check, doctor's orders, sleep only." "Roger that, Mama Bear, but I'm here if you need me." That baby's got a whole army of love around them. Laying in the darkness, Amara listened to Callum's steady breathing and placed both hands on her stomach. "Stay with us, little one," she whispered. "We've got so many people waiting to meet you, so many hearts ready to love you. Just hold on tight." Outside, a spring storm rolled through Atlanta, lightning illuminating the room in bright flashes. But inside, in the quiet space between heartbeats, Amara prayed for strength, for herself, for her baby, for the family they were fighting to become. Sometimes the biggest miracles come with the biggest battles, and this was one battle she couldn't afford to lose. 3 weeks into mandatory bed rest, Amara's bedroom had become both sanctuary and prison. The walls of their penthouse master suite, once comforting in their familiar luxury, now seemed to close in a little more each day. Even the Atlanta skyline, visible through floor-to-ceiling windows, felt like a taunting reminder of the world moving on without her. "If I have to watch one more episode of anything, I might scream," she confided to Lisa, who sat cross-legged at the foot of her bed, painting Amara's toenails a cheerful coral pink. "Better than checking work emails," Lisa replied, giving her friend a knowing look. "Which you promised to stop doing." Amara guiltily glanced at her phone, where dozens of unread messages waited. "I just hate feeling useless. Growing a miracle baby is not useless." Lisa finished the last toe with a flourish, especially when that baby is determined to give everyone a scare. The reminder sobered Amara. Last week's checkup had shown improvement, but Dr. Martinez remained cautiously conservative about lifting any restrictions. The words high-risk pregnancy still hung over everything like a storm cloud. A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Victoria Sinclair entered, looking elegantly put together as always, but with subtle signs of strain around her eyes. "Lisa, dear, would you mind giving us a moment?" Victoria's tone was pleasant, but left no room for argument. After Lisa left, promising to return tomorrow with fresh magazines and gossip, Victoria took the vacated spot on the bed. For a moment, she simply studied Amara, her expression softening. "You look better," she said finally. "More color in your cheeks." "The bed rest is helping," Amara admitted, "even if it's driving me crazy." "I remember that feeling." Victoria's hand drifted to her own stomach, lost in memory. "After my second miscarriage, the doctors confined me to bed for 4 months. I thought I'd lose my mind, but then," she smiled slightly, "then I felt Callum kick for the first time, and suddenly nothing else mattered." Amara's hand instinctively went to her growing bump. At 16 weeks, she hadn't felt definitive movement yet, just flutter-like sensations she couldn't be sure weren't wishful thinking. "Has Bill—" she started, then hesitated. Victoria's expression hardened slightly. "My husband is being difficult, but he'll come around. He has to." She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a small velvet box. "This is why I came today." Opening the box revealed a delicate gold locket, clearly antique. "This has been in the Sinclair family for 5 generations," Victoria explained. "Each mother has passed it to her child's firstborn. I've been saving it for this moment." Amara's throat tightened with emotion as Victoria fastened the locket around her neck. "But the baby isn't even here yet, and with the complications, this baby will be here." Victoria's voice was firm. "I feel it in my bones. And you're already a mother, Amara. You proved that the moment you agreed to this bed, rest without complaint, putting your child's needs before your own." Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks as she touched the locket. Inside was a tiny picture of Callum as a baby, cradled in Victoria's arms. The other side was empty, waiting for a new photo. A commotion from the penthouse entrance interrupted the moment. Callum's voice, usually so controlled, was raised in anger. "You can't just show up here unannounced." "It's my right to question this," Bill Sinclair's voice boomed back. "This miracle pregnancy is too convenient, too perfectly timed." Victoria was on her feet instantly, moving toward the bedroom door. But before she reached it, Callum burst in, his face flushed with rage. Bill followed, but stopped short at the sight of his wife. "Victoria, what are you doing here?" "Supporting our daughter-in-law," she replied coolly. "Something you might try if you could see past your own stubbornness." "Stubbornness," Bill scoffed. "I'm the only one thinking clearly here. The timing, the circumstances. Get out." Callum's voice was deadly quiet. "Now, you're blind, son. This woman is carrying your grandchild," Victoria cut in. "Your flesh and blood, Bill. The DNA tests proved it. Tests can be manipulated." "Enough," Amara's voice rang out, stronger than she felt. She struggled to sit up straighter, one hand protectively over her bump. "Mr. Sinclair, I understand your skepticism, I do. This pregnancy surprised everyone, including me, but your son is not blind, and I am not lying." Something in her tone made everyone freeze. Even Bill fell silent. "This baby," she continued, her voice trembling slightly, "is a miracle, one that's fighting to survive despite everything. And right now my only job is to keep them safe. So if you can't be supportive, if you can't believe in the possibility of miracles, then please, just go." The room was silent except for the sound of Amara's ragged breathing. Callum moved to her side instantly, his hand finding hers. "Your blood pressure," he murmured worriedly. As if on cue, a sharp pain shot through Amara's abdomen. She gasped, doubling over. "Out! Everyone out!" Callum ordered. already reaching for his phone to call Dr. Martinez. Victoria practically dragged Bill from the room, but not before Amara saw something flicker across his face. Was it concern? Guilt? She couldn't focus through the pain. Hours later, after another emergency visit from Dr. Martinez and more stern warnings about stress, Amara lay in the darkness, listening to Callum's worried breathing beside her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have stopped him before he even entered the building. It's not your fault." She turned to face him, finding his hand in the dark. "Your father is struggling with this. He's being cruel and suspicious, and it's putting you and the baby at risk." Callum's voice was bitter. "I won't allow it anymore. I've already called security. He's not to be allowed up without express permission from both of us." "Callum, no arguments." He pulled her closer, his hand splaying protectively over her bump. "You and this baby are my priority. Everything else, the company, my father's approval, all of it is secondary." Amara felt tears threatening again. "Damn hormones. I love you. I love you more." His lips found hers in the darkness. "Both of you." The next morning, a delivery arrived. A massive box of ginger tea, anti-nausea crackers, and pregnancy-safe bath products. The card, in Victoria's elegant handwriting, read, "For my daughter and grandchild. Let me handle Bill. You focus on growing stronger. All my love in Victoria." Amara added the card to her diary, next to the ultrasound pictures and the first draft of their birth plan. Then she settled back against her pillows, one hand absently rubbing her bump, while the other held the locket Victoria had given her. "Your family is complicated, little one," she whispered, "but they love fiercely. Even your grandfather. He just needs time to believe in you. And you're giving us all a masterclass in believing in miracles, aren't you?" A flutter-like sensation, stronger than before, unmistakable this time, answered her. Amara gasped, then laughed through tears. "Callum," she called. "Come quick, the baby." I felt them move. Sometimes the smallest movements could bring the biggest joy, and sometimes, Amara was learning, the hardest paths led to the most precious destinations. The emergency room's harsh fluorescent lights cast strange shadows as doctors rushed around Amara's gurney. At 24 weeks pregnant, her baby bump was now prominent, but the monitors attached to it were beeping with alarming irregularity. "Blood pressure's still climbing," a nurse called out, 190 over 110. Dr. Martinez's face was grim as she studied the readings. "We need to prep for an emergency C-section. Call the NICU team." "No!" Amara clutched her stomach protectively. "It's too early. The baby's too small." "Amara," Dr. Martinez's voice was gentle but firm, "you're experiencing severe preeclampsia. If we don't deliver now, you could both die." Callum gripped Amara's hand, his face ashen. Just hours ago, they'd been peacefully celebrating the completion of their nursery. Walls painted a soft blue-gray, a vintage rocking chair by the window, and the small framed onesie that had been Amara's first purchase. Now, their world was shattering around them. "Where is she?" Bill Sinclair's voice boomed from the hallway. "Where's my daughter-in-law?" Callum turned, surprise flickering across his face at his father's choice of words. Bill burst into the room, Victoria close behind him, both still in evening wear. They'd clearly come straight from some function. "What happened?" Bill demanded, his commanding presence filling the small space. "Sir, only immediate family," a nurse started. "We are immediate family," Victoria cut in smoothly. "That's our grandchild." The word grandchild seemed to hang in the air as another alarm started beeping. Dr. Martinez glanced at the monitor and made a decisive gesture to her team. "We don't have time for discussion. This baby needs to come out now." She looked at Callum. "We need your consent. There has to be another way," Amara pleaded, tears streaming down her face. 24 weeks is so early. The baby has a chance," Dr. Martinez assured her. "A good one with our NICU team. But right now, you're both in danger. We have to act." Callum looked torn between terror and determination. "Do it. Save them both." Everything moved quickly after that. As they wheeled Amara toward the operating room, she clutched Callum's hand. "Don't leave us." "Never," he promised. But a nurse was already pulling him away to put on surgical scrubs. In that moment of separation, Bill Sinclair stepped forward. To everyone's shock, he took Amara's hand. "You listen to me, young lady," his voice gruff with emotion. "You and that baby are Sinclairs, and Sinclairs don't give up. You hear me?" Amara nodded through her tears. seeing for the first time the fear behind his gruff exterior. Fear of losing the grandchild he'd only just started to accept. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know." His grip tightened. "But you're stronger than your fear. Both of you are." Then she was being wheeled away, the operating room doors swinging shut behind her. Callum, now in scrubs, took his place by her head as the medical team worked with practiced efficiency. "Talk to me," she begged him as the anesthesiologist prepared her. "Please, about anything. Remember our first date?" His voice was shaky but determined. "When you ordered the spiciest dish on the menu just to prove you could handle it." Amara tried to smile through her fear. "You spent the whole night worried I'd get sick. Instead, you taught me about your father's secret hot sauce recipe." His thumb stroked her cheek. "That's when I knew you were special, so strong, so full of life." "Cold pressure," Dr. Martinez announced. "Beginning incision." Amara squeezed her eyes shut. "Keep talking. Think about the nursery, the rocking chair that took 3 different delivery attempts to get right, the mobile with stars and moons that plays Coldplay." A flurry of activity below the surgical drape interrupted him. Then, impossibly small but distinct, a cry pierced the air. "It's a girl," Dr. Martinez announced. "She's breathing on her own." "Let me see her," Amara pleaded. "Please." The NICU team worked quickly, but before they rushed the baby away, they brought her close enough for Amara to see. Tiny, perfect features, dark hair, and when she opened her eyes briefly, they were startlingly blue like Callum's. "She's beautiful," Callum whispered, tears streaming down his face, just like her mother. But complications weren't done with them yet. As they closed Amara's incision, her blood pressure suddenly dropped. "She's hemorrhaging," someone called out. "Push more fluids." "Amara," Callum's voice seemed to come from far away. "Amara, stay with me." The last thing she heard was Dr. Martinez barking orders and Callum's desperate plea, "Don't leave us. Please don't leave us." Then darkness. Hours later, Amara slowly surfaced to consciousness. The first thing she registered was the steady beeping of monitors. Then, gradually, voices. "She's the tiniest thing I've ever seen." Bill Sinclair's voice, unusually soft. "But she's got a grip like iron, grabbed my finger and wouldn't let go." "Just like her mother," Victoria replied, holding on with all her strength. "I was wrong." Bill's admission was barely audible. "About everything. When I saw that little girl fighting to breathe, saw how hard they both fought to survive, I've never been more ashamed of my doubts." "Then tell them," Victoria said gently, "when they're both stronger." Amara tried to open her eyes, but they felt impossibly heavy. A warm hand squeezed hers. Callum, she'd know his touch anywhere. "Come back to us, love," he whispered. "Our daughter needs you, I need you." Finally, her eyes fluttered open. The room slowly came into focus. Callum's worried face, Victoria's relieved smile, and Bill, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "The baby?" Her voice was raw. "She's amazing," Callum assured her. 3 pounds, 4 ounces of pure fighter. "The NICU team says she's exceeding all expectations. I want to see her. As soon as you're stronger," Victoria promised. "So for now we have pictures." She held up her phone, showing Amara the tiniest, most perfect baby she'd ever seen, surrounded by tubes, but undeniably beautiful. "She needs a name," Bill said gruffly. "A strong name." Amara's eyes met Callum's. They'd discussed names but hadn't settled on one. Now, looking at their daughter's picture, she knew. "Hope," she said softly. "Hope Victoria Sinclair." Bill's sharp intake of breath was audible. Victoria pressed a hand to her heart. "Perfect," Callum agreed, kissing Amara's forehead. "For the hope she gave us when we thought it was impossible, and for the hope she brings to our future. And my mother's greatest gift," Amara added, looking at Victoria, "faith in miracles." Later, when she was finally wheeled into the NICU to see Hope, Amara understood why they called it kangaroo care as she held her daughter skin to skin. The tiny girl settled against her chest, her heartbeat strong and steady. "You've caused quite a stir, little one," she whispered. "Made your grandfather believe in miracles. Made your daddy cry happy tears. Made your grandmother start planning your debutante ball already." Hope's only response was to grip Amara's finger, the same iron grip Bill had mentioned. "That's right," Amara smiled through tears. "Hold on tight. We've got so much love waiting for you. So many dreams to share. So many impossible things to make possible." Outside the NICU window, 3 generations of Sinclairs watched mother and daughter bond. Victoria with joyful tears, Bill with newfound humility, and Callum with pure love. Their miracle baby had done more than survive against the odds. She'd healed old wounds, bridged impossible gaps, and taught them all that sometimes the greatest strength lies in simply holding on. The NICU's soft beeping had become a familiar lullaby over the past 3 weeks. Amara sat in the rocking chair beside Hope's incubator, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall with each tiny breath. At just over 4 pounds now, Hope was still smaller than most newborns, but she was fighting with a determination that amazed everyone. "Someone's oxygen levels are looking good today," the night nurse, Maria, said softly as she checked the monitors. "She's quite the little warrior, just like her grandmother." A gruff voice came from the NICU entrance. Bill Sinclair stood there, looking oddly out of place in the required sterile gown over his expensive suit. In his hands, he held a small pink gift bag. "Another present." "Dad," Callum appeared behind him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "That's the 3rd this week." Bill's ears reddened slightly. "It's just a little something I saw in the window at Tiffany's. Every princess needs her first diamond." Amara exchanged an amused look with Callum. Since Hope's dramatic arrival, Bill had transformed from skeptical antagonist to doting grandfather. The change was as startling as it was heartwarming. "You know she can't wear jewelry yet," Callum reminded him, handing Amara one of the coffee cups. "Of course I know that," Bill huffed, but his eyes were soft as he approached the incubator. "Hello, little one. Grandfather's here." As if responding to his voice, Hope stirred, her tiny fingers flexing. The simple movement brought tears to Bill's eyes, tears he no longer tried to hide. "Dr. Martinez says she might be ready for full feed soon," Amara said, watching Bill's face. "No more feeding tube. That's my girl." Bill's voice was thick with emotion. "They're proving everyone wrong just like her mother did." The admission hung in the air, an acknowledgement of his past doubts and current regret. Before anyone could respond, Hope's monitor beeped, her oxygen levels dipping slightly. "It's normal," Maria assured them, adjusting something on the machine. "She just needs a little help sometimes." "Don't we all?" Victoria's voice joined them. She swept in, elegant as always despite the sterile gown, carrying a large portfolio. "The nursery renovations are ready for review." "Renovations?" Amara raised an eyebrow. "We already finished the nursery. That was before we knew our granddaughter would need special care," Victoria explained, pulling out detailed plans. "I've consulted with the top NICU nurses about the optimal setup for a preemie. Special humidity controls and air purification system, modified lighting." "Mother," Callum started, but Bill cut him off. "Let her do this," he said quietly. "We all cope in our own ways." The truth behind those words settled over them. Each family member had found their own way to channel their worry for Hope. Victoria with her meticulous planning, Bill with his endless gifts, Callum with his daily research into preemie care. A soft knock interrupted them. Lisa stood at the entrance, holding a handmade blanket. "Special delivery from your mom's church group," she announced. They've been praying non-stop. Amara felt tears well up as she took the blanket. Soft pink, with Hope's name embroidered in silver thread. Her parents' support had been unwavering, though they'd had to return to Atlanta after the first week. "She's getting stronger every day," Lisa observed, peering into the incubator. "So it's those Sinclair genes combined with Bennett determination. She never stood a chance of being anything but a fighter." "Speaking of fighting," Bill cleared his throat, "I've been meaning to talk to you all about something." He pulled a document from his suit jacket. "I've made some changes at the company." Callum tensed beside Amara. "Dad, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time." Bill's voice was firm. "Shagam stepping down as CEO." The announcement stunned everyone into silence. Even Hope seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, choosing then to open her eyes, those startling blue eyes that matched her father's. "You're what?" Callum finally managed, stepping down. "Effective immediately." Bill moved closer to the incubator, watching his granddaughter. "These past few weeks have taught me something important. Life is too short for pride and stubbornness. I've spent years focused on the wrong things, measuring worth by the wrong metrics." He turned to face them all. "Callum, you're ready, more than ready, and you understand something I never did. That family comes first. Real family, not just the family name." Victoria pressed a hand to her heart, tears streaming freely down her face. "Bill, I want to be there," he continued, his voice rough with emotion. "For all of it. Hope's first steps, first words, first everything. I don't want to be the grandfather who's too busy with board meetings to notice his granddaughter growing up." Callum stood frozen, processing his father's words. But the company will be in better hands. Bill smiled slightly. You've already proven you can handle crisis and triumph with equal grace. Just look at what you've built here. He gestured to Hope, to Amara, to their united family. This is success, son. This is legacy. Amara watched as father and son truly saw each other, perhaps for the first time. Callum moved first, pulling his father into a tight embrace. Bill stiffened for a moment before melting into it, his usual corporate facade crumbling completely. I'm proud of you, Bill whispered. So proud of both of you. Hope chose that moment to make a small, triumphant sound, almost like a coo. Everyone laughed through their tears as she wiggled in her incubator, showing off her growing strength. See? Lisa grinned. Even she agrees. Though personally, I think she's just tired of all the crying in her NICU. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Amara and Callum sat together by Hope's incubator. Their daughter slept peacefully, one tiny hand wrapped around Callum's finger through the incubator's port. Did you ever imagine this? Amara asked softly. Any of it? Never. Callum smiled, watching Hope sleep. I never thought I could have children. Never thought my father could change. Never thought I could love this much without my heart exploding. She's magic, Amara whispered. Our little miracle worker. Just wait until she's older. With you as her mother and my father as her grandfather. She'll be running the company by 25. As long as she's happy, Amara said, resting her head on his shoulder. That's all I want for her. To be happy and know she's loved. She'll know. Callum kissed her temple. How could she not? She has an army of love around her. Outside the NICU windows, Atlanta's lights twinkled like stars. Inside, Hope slept on, growing stronger with each breath, surrounded by the love that had sparked her impossible existence. Sometimes the greatest miracles weren't in the big moments of triumph, but in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, where love grew stronger than fear, and hope bloomed in the most unexpected places. 2 months after her dramatic entrance into the world, Hope Victoria Sinclair was finally coming home. The nursery, with its state-of-the-art modifications courtesy of Victoria's planning kitchen, stood ready. The autumn sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a golden glow over the room that had waited so long for its precious occupant. Amara stood in the doorway, taking in every detail. The vintage rocking chair where she'd spent countless hours imagining this moment, the delicate mobile playing soft Coldplay melodies, and the framed onesie that had been her first act of faith. Now, that same message, Daddy's little miracle, felt more true than ever. Ready? Callum's voice was soft behind her. He held their daughter, now a healthy 7 pounds, wrapped in the pink blanket from her mother's church group. I've been ready for this moment my whole life, Amara replied, turning to face her family. Hope was awake, her blue eyes, so like Callum's, taking in everything with surprising intensity for a newborn. The elevator dinged, announcing more arrivals. Bill and Victoria stepped out, followed by Lisa and Amara's parents. The penthouse quickly filled with the warmth of family and the soft cooing of everyone trying to get Hope's attention. My turn to hold my granddaughter, Bill announced, already reaching for Hope. The tenderness with which the once intimidating CEO cradled the tiny baby still amazed Amara. Remember when you thought this was impossible? Lisa whispered to Amara, watching Bill gently rock Hope. Look at your miracle now. Pastor Bennett stepped forward, placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. God's timing is perfect, baby girl, even when we don't understand it. Speaking of timing, Victoria interrupted smoothly, I believe it's time for the surprise. Mother, Callum started, but she was already gesturing to Bradford, who had appeared silently with a large wrapped package. What's this? Amara asked as the butler placed the gift on the coffee table. Open it, Bill encouraged, still swaying gently with hope. Inside was a beautifully bound leather album. Amara's breath caught as she opened it. On the first page was the ultrasound picture that had started everything, alongside a photo of her and Callum from their first company gala. Keep going, Victoria urged softly. Each page told their story. The wedding planning, the medical crisis, Hope's dramatic arrival. There were NICU photos showing her progress, candid shots of Bill falling asleep in the NICU chair, Victoria organizing the nursery renovation, the entire family united around Hope's incubator. The last page is my favorite, Bill said gruffly. Amara turned to it and gasped. There was a legal document, Hope's trust fund paperwork, but with an unusual stipulation. The fund wasn't just in Hope's name, but in the name of the Hope Sinclair Foundation for Miracle Babies. "What is this?" Callum asked, reading over Amara's shoulder. "Your father's idea," Victoria explained proudly. "A foundation dedicated to supporting families with premature babies, funding NICU research, and providing resources for high-risk pregnancies. The impossible isn't always impossible," Bill said, looking down at Hope. "Sometimes it just needs a little help, a lot of love and people who believe. Every family deserves that chance." Amara couldn't speak through her tears. The man who had once questioned their miracle was now ensuring other families would have support for their own miracle journeys. "There's more," Victoria added. "The foundation will be run by its new executive director, if she accepts, of course." She looked meaningfully at Amara. "Me," Amara managed. "Who better?" Bill asked. "You've lived it. You understand what these families need, and you have a way of making people believe in miracles." Callum squeezed her hand. "It's perfect. You can help other families find their hope." Hope chose that moment to make a small and happy sound, as if adding her own approval. Everyone laughed, the joy in the room palpable. "Well," Lisa grinned, "looks like the CEO's daughter has spoken. Speaking of which," Bill cleared his throat, "the board meeting is set for next week, son. Time to make your transition to CEO official. And time for grandfather to focus on his most important job," Victoria added with a knowing smile. As if on cue, Hope began to fuss. Bill immediately shifted into action, heading for the rocking chair with practiced ease. Now, princess. Grandfather's got you. How about a story? Did I ever tell you about the time your daddy tried to rebuild a computer at age 7? "Dad?" Callum protested, but he was smiling. Amara watched as her family settled into their new roles. Bill in the rocking chair with Hope, Victoria arranging tea service, Lisa snapping photos, her parents beaming proudly, and Callum's arm warm around her waist. Later that night, after everyone had gone and Hope was sleeping peacefully in her crib, Amara found Callum standing at the nursery window. The Atlanta skyline glittered beyond, but his eyes were fixed on their daughter. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "I was just thinking about that day in my office, when I told you I couldn't have children." His voice was soft with wonder. "How certain I was that I would lose you. How impossible this all seemed. And now look at us." Amara moved to stand beside him, a CEO and a foundation director, with the most beautiful daughter in the world. "And the most amazing family," he added. "Who would have thought my father would become the world's most devoted grandfather?" "Love changes people," Amara said simply. "And miracles have a way of opening hearts." Hope stirred in her crib, making those little sounds that were becoming familiar to them. Without hesitation, they both moved to her, drawn by an instinct stronger than gravity. "Hello, beautiful," Amara whispered, lifting her daughter. The weight of her, the warmth, still felt miraculous every time. Callum wrapped his arms around them both, creating a perfect circle of love. "Fuck our little family. Not so little anymore." Amara smiled, thinking of their extended family, by blood and by choice, who had become so integral to their journey. Hope's tiny hand caught a strand of Amara's hair, holding on with that signature Sinclair determination. In her daughter's face, Amara could see echoes of both families. Callum's eyes, her own smile, Bill's strong chin, her mother's graceful features. "You know what this means, don't you?" Callum asked softly. "What? Impossible is just a word. It's not a destination." He kissed Hope's forehead, then Amara's lips. "We proved that." Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, in the quiet of their home, a family born of love, strengthened by trials, and blessed by miracles, held each other close. Hope slept peacefully in her parents' arms, unaware that her very existence had changed not just their lives, but their entire understanding of what was possible. Because sometimes the greatest miracles aren't in the big moments of triumph, but in the quiet certainty of a love strong enough to defy impossibility. And sometimes, the most beautiful endings are really just beginnings in disguise. For the Sinclairs, this was both an ending and a beginning, the end of doubt, of fear, of impossibility, and the beginning of a future filled with hope, love, and the kind of miracles that come to those who never stop believing. The end. If you could choose between having the perfect love or fulfilling your biggest dream, what would you decide? Amara faced this dilemma when she found out that Callum couldn't have children. She chose love, even if it meant giving up her dream of being a mother. But fate had other plans and proved that sometimes we don't have to choose. Miracles happen to those who have faith and true love. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between love and your dream? What happened? Did fate also bring a miracle into your life? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.